Since 1878, we've forged talents, industrialized skills, and nurtured minds. We all face challenges, but it is how we come together to overcome them that counts. We work with educators, employers, and governments in over 100 countries to get people into a job, progress in the job, and onto the next job. We are apprenticeships, T-levels, technicals, and traineeships. We are engineering, health and care, and construction. We are aspiration, opportunity, and ambition. We are City and Guilds. No one is better qualified.
Link on the bottom of the slide that will take you to a full version of our 8-step guide, and I'd really recommend giving that a read. I'm going to focus today on stages 3 to 8, so from registration to results. So if I could get the next slide, please. Can I get the next slide? Thanks. Once approved to deliver EPA with City and Guilds, we will set up a primary user for you on the EPA Pro platform. Now that primary user can set up as many other sub-users as you want or need. They all have the same access rights. It's just that the primary user is the only person that can create additional sub-users. That EPA primary user is our main contact with you for the EPA Pro system. So once you have that primary user set up and your approval has gone through with City and Guilds, our EPA onboarding team will be in touch with you, and they'll give you all the support you need to orientate yourself with the platform, understand our journey. They do run some webinar sessions, so we've got one on getting started on EPA Pro, another on submitting gateway and the planning meeting, and a third on EPA assessment evidence and results. So when you get access to the platform, you will see all the standards that you've been approved to deliver are already set up for you. And as you get approved for new standards, they will simply get added to your profile in the system. Our onboarding team also run regular drop-in sessions. So that's just opportunities to come and ask a question, get a refresher on any elements of the platform that you might need. And also, as we release updates with the platform, they'll be able to show you how those updates will work. So if we can get the next slide, please. Thank you. So when you are onboarded and you're set up on your EPA Pro system, this is what your main dashboard will look like. So if we just talk you through the various elements. So you see across the top those coloured boxes. So they give you a weekly reporting snapshot at a glance of your current delivery. And they show you things like new apprentices registered, number of gateways completed, new results, and new certification. So just a snapshot really of your delivery. You can see underneath bottom right is a calendar which shows all of your EPA events. We have a news function, so we can feed out news to you. So that's either news about our processes, hints and tips, changes to the platform. And on the left-hand side, you can see the main menu for the platform. And we're going to look at that in a little bit more detail now. So if I could get the next slide, please. Thank you. So this is the main menu. So this is your main way of navigating around the platform. And we'll touch on some more of these areas as we go through the presentation, but it's well worth, when you initially get set up on EPA Pro, spending a little bit of time just navigating yourself around this menu, getting familiar with which elements are where on the platform. But EPA Pro is a very intuitive platform, so I'm really confident that in no time you'll be able to navigate around the platform very easily. So if we can get the next slide, please. Another key feature of the platform is a notifications area. So on your main dashboard, it's at the top right, and you'll see that little bell icon. So we can send you notifications through the platform at different times in your EPA journey, highlighting significant stages and events. So the platform will tell you when gateway evidence is due, when we've accepted or unfortunately rejected gateway evidence. We will tell you when your results are available, and we will notify you of any planned assessments as they are coming up. And if you click on a notification, it will take you to the record for that particular apprentice. So if I can get the next slide, please. Thanks. So let's assume that you've had approval with City and Guilds, you've been set up with access to EPA Pro, you've got everything you need, and you're good to go to start registering your apprentices on the platform and getting started with your EPA delivery. So if we can get the next slide, please. Thank you. So at first setup, you'll need to decide whether you want to add employers to the platform. Now, really, we're only recommending that you add employers to the platform if you want your employers to be able to access the platform and see progress of your apprentices. If you don't, it's enough that in the workplace details for your apprentices, you add the employer address. Now, if you do decide you want to add employers to the platform, there are two ways to do this. You can do it one by one using the add employer, or you can do it in bulk using import employers. Now, the good news is that if you want to do lots of employers, you can do this in one bulk upload, and you can easily edit employers using the little pencil icon under edit once they're all created. So if we have a look first at the bulk upload process, if I could get the next slide, please. Thanks. So one of the really nice features of EPA Pro is that for any activity you perform as a bulk upload, we provide under the Helpers button an example CSV file format for you to follow. And it's also filled out with some example fields in that as well. So you find the example file you need, download it, you simply add the data and then re-upload that file into the platform. So if we can get the next slide, please. So registering your apprentices is actually just as easy. So again, we have an individual option. You can do them one by one, or more efficiently, probably for you, the same bulk upload functionality. So don't forget those helper files because they're really useful. And just a sort of belt and braces approach, we've also put an additional help guide in terms of uploading apprentices to the platform in bulk. If you do decide to add either employers or apprentices individually, you just step through each of the screens, tab through each of the screens, and across all of the platform, actually, anywhere where there's an asterisk, that denotes a mandatory field. So if I can get the next slide, please. Now, we're really hoping that when you set up your apprentices, you will toggle the little icon that says that your apprentices can log in. And that will allow your apprentices to get a view of the platform as well. Lots of our feedback told us that providers really wanted apprenticeships to be much more in control of their own learning, and this is a great way to do that. So the apprentice view of the platform is an even simpler view. So they get sort of 5 key areas. They get their individual calendar of their events and activities. They get individual notifications at the top right. They get access to support materials over on the left-hand menu. They get a personal profile area, and I'll show you a little bit more about that, which gives them a view of progress through their EPA as they go. And again, they get their latest news, and we can tailor the latest news to apprentice news or provider news, so people are only seeing the relevant news for them. We've also added in the support resources in the welcome area on EPA Pro, a presentation that you can use with your apprentices, which will show them around the platform so that you don't have to do that job. So if we can get the next slide, please. So if I quickly step you through what the apprentice will see in terms of their EPA journey from end to end. The platform, as I mentioned, really puts them much more in charge of their EPA journey. And this apprentice profile gives them a really clear visual indication of their progress and next steps, and allows them to access their results as soon as they're available. So no more coming to the office door and knocking on the door and saying, "Are my results in yet?" which I know has happened a lot in the past. So results are available as soon as, are released as soon as they are available on the platform. And you can also download a statement of achievement, and I'll show you that and what that looks like later on. And providers can also access this view. So at no point in time should you be unaware as to where, what stage of the journey your apprentice is at. So if I can get the next slide, please. If we head back to the main menu, the next area to take a look at is around support materials. So as the provider, you will get access to all the support materials we've got for all of the standards that you're approved to deliver. Now, you can either look at them in terms of type of resources, so EPA packs, and you get a list of all the EPA packs, or you can look at things by standard, and you can type in a particular standard and it will show you all the resources we have for that particular standards. Apprentices and employers and providers only get access to the relevant support materials. So something like a lead independent assessor report, we wouldn't make that available to apprentices. And if we've got sample tests with sample answers, again, we wouldn't make those available to apprentices. So it's kind of context specific support resources. And again, as I mentioned, in the support resources, we've got those welcome packs to use for your apprentices if you need to. And if you need any other support or additional guides, just do get in touch. We can easily create those and add them to the support materials section. So if we can get the next slide, please, and we'll have a look at some of the types of support resources that are available. So we've got things like welcome packs, we've got exemplar materials. You can see in the middle at the bottom there, that's an exemplar material of an assessment taking place, and it will show you really strong responses for that sort of assessment. We've got welcome packs, support guides, you name it, everything we've got to support your apprentice is available under those support materials. So if I could get the next slide, please. So once your apprentices have worked through the on-programme element of their apprenticeship, supported by the support resources in EPA Pro and obviously your good teaching and learning, you'll be ready for the gateway sign-off process. And this shows that your apprentice is ready for endpoint assessment. Now, if I could get the next slide, please. Now, a quick recap on what gateway is, but I'm sure you're all really on top of what gateway is by now, but in all assessment plans, it's the employer that makes the decision that the apprentice is ready to move to endpoint assessment. So this is known as gateway. So at gateway, we will need confirmation from the apprentice that they have taken part in a discussion with their provider and employer, and that everyone has agreed that they're ready for endpoint assessment. And also, as you pass through gateway, we will ask the provider just to reconfirm on behalf of themselves and the employer that that apprentice is ready for gateway. Where a mandatory qualification is included within the gateway, we will need to see evidence of that as part of our gateway process. So if we could get the next slide, please. Thank you. So this is our apprentice declaration form. We make all the forms that we ask you to fill out available on EPA Pro itself. I'd recommend that you always try and access the forms in EPA Pro, because that means that you're always getting the most up-to-date resources in case we do change them as time goes on. So always try and access them in EPA Pro rather than download and keep a local copy or print anything off. This form only needs to be filled out by the apprentice to say that they've had a meeting with their provider and employer and that they're coming through gateway. And this just gives us also permission to apply for the ESFA certificate at the end of the process, and also to issue them with a digital credential. And I'll talk more about that later on. If we could get the next slide, please. So one new document that we've introduced as part of this new EPA journey for ourselves is a preferred planning meeting form. And this is to be completed together with the provider and the employer and the apprentice. And it is to propose 3 dates that you'd like your planning meeting to take place on. And I'll touch a little bit more on the planning meeting in a moment. And also just tell us who needs to attend the planning meeting. So it's entirely up to you who attends the meeting. We don't have any rules, but we do find that the more key stakeholders who attend, the better alignment we get around the dates. And we'll cover the planning meeting in a little bit more detail in a while. If I can get the next slide, please. Thank you. In terms of where to start the gateway process in EPA Pro, so you need to head to Gateway Review on the main menu. And once you click into that drop down, you'll see your centre's gateway activity broken down by status. So enrolled shows apprentices who have registered and are already on programme. Confirmed shows apprentices where you have been able to confirm they're ready for EPA date, i.e. the date they're going to come through gateway. Pending shows the number of gateways that you've submitted to City and Guilds, and we're working on approving those. Rejected shows gateways that unfortunately we've had to reject, and I'll touch more on that in a little while. Completed shows all the gateways that have been completed and are successfully now through gateway, and archived shows any archived apprentices who have now actually gone on to complete. So if we get the next slide, please. Thanks. So 30 days prior to your estimated ready for EPA date, i.e. the date you anticipate coming through gateway, you'll receive a notification through EPA Pro to confirm that date. So the first step is to select an apprentice from your enrolled list, and you can filter or search to help you do this. If the estimated ready for EPA date is okay, and that's still the same date, you can press confirm, or if you need to edit that date slightly, perhaps it's going to take a little bit longer than you previously thought, you can edit that date. So once you press confirmed, the apprentice will move to the confirmed gateway stage, and from then on you can go back into gateway, pick them up from that confirmed stage, find the particular apprentice you want, and when you're ready to submit their gateway, you simply select process. We could get the next slide, please. So the gateway process will then take you through a very simple 4-stage process. The first is the elements screen, and this will explain that for each apprentice what our gateway requirements are for that particular apprentice. So we will always require the apprentice declaration form, and we will always require the preferred planning meeting dates form. In addition to this, we'll detail any mandatory, perhaps maths and English requirements, or any other mandatory qualification requirements, or any other gateway evidence we require. We'll make it very clear whether we need a simple confirmation, a simple yes, I've done that thing, or whether we need to see an upload of the evidence. To upload evidence, simply browse for the file, give it a name, and then select upload. Now, please only upload the relevant evidence against the relevant component. If you just upload a huge zip file of everything against one component, that will slow everything down for you. Another tip, if you're uploading a certificate and your name has changed, or the name of your apprentice has changed in that time, if you can also upload a proof of that name change at the same time, that really helps us. Gateway evidence can be added as soon as you've got it available, and you can save it as you go. And I'll show you on the next screen how you submit that evidence. If we could get the next slide, please. So the second stage is just a really simple text box where you can add any additional notes, anything else you need to tell us. The third stage simply replays to you all the information we have about that particular apprentice, so you can confirm their details and check everything's up to date. And then the fourth stage is a very simple tick box to check that you've got everything that we need. And then we ask you to read a simple gateway declaration, which is the same for all of our standards. And you're signing that on behalf of the provider and the employer. And it's not until you toggle that submit gateway button that you actually submit your gateway to us, and we can review that evidence. Next slide, please. So our gateway team will take things from here, and we'll begin to review all of your evidence. Your apprentice will appear in pending while we perform our checks. Our SLA is around 3 days, but we do it as soon as we receive it, so hopefully it might be even faster than that. And we will hopefully be able to accept your evidence or reject it if we need to. But don't worry, if we do need to reject it, we will make it very clear the reasons why we're rejecting it. And hopefully you'll be able to resubmit that evidence really quickly with the evidence that we do need to see, and there won't be much delay to your process. If I could get the next slide, please. So stage 5 is the planning meeting. This is the newest stage for those of you that have been doing apprenticeships with City and Guilds. And if I get the next slide, please. So once your apprentice has come through gateway, we will be matching that apprentice with an independent endpoint assessor, or IEPA as we call them. The apprentice and any workplace mentor that you've set up in the platform will be informed by email that they've been matched with an IEPA. And then our IEPA will look at your preferred planning meeting dates form, look at what dates you want that planning meeting to take place, and we'll try their level best to accommodate those dates. We ask for 3 dates. We'll always go for your first date first. If we need to, we've got a couple of fallback dates. So all attendees at the planning meeting will receive invitations, go-to-meeting links. It is a virtual meeting. We schedule these for an hour, but they don't take an hour. Typically 10 or 15 minutes is all that's required for those meetings. So the planning meeting really replaces that sort of back and forth that we perhaps used to have around making an EPA reservation and waiting for us to accommodate the booking, and then sometimes back and forth if we couldn't match dates. This is an opportunity for all the key stakeholders to get around a virtual table, if you like, get their diaries open and agree on the best availability for them. So you can discuss any nuances of sequencing, i.e. I have to do this component before that one. You can discuss any sort of evidence requirements and when they will be due. But the real benefit of the planning meeting is actually for the apprentice to get to meet their IEPA before the event. And we hear lots of lovely feedback about how much more at ease the apprentice feels having put a sort of face to a name of an IEPA. So that's the main benefit of the meeting. And it does a great job of just calming their nerves when they do actually take their independent endpoint assessment. So if we can get the next slide up, please. Thank you. Providers can manage the planning meetings through the assessment area on the menu under Manage Planning Meetings, and you can easily see the status of your meetings and view the meeting details at any time. So you can always check back in there if you're not sure, but obviously they will also appear on your calendar. If I could get the next slide, please. So once the planning meeting has happened, your independent endpoint assessor will build everything that was agreed in the meeting into an assessment plan. So this will trigger all the invitations to the various EPA events to all those who need them. And the dates will be populated on the EPA calendars that I showed you earlier, both for the providers and the apprentice. Now, this plan can be viewed at any time after the meeting has taken place by selecting View Plan. If your assessment area requires an Evolve online test, they can be booked through Walled Garden in the normal way. And once we receive those bookings through Walled Garden, our booking team will add those into your assessment plan. If I could get the next slide, please. So stage 6 is around uploading your assessment evidence. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, at the planning meeting, you'll have discussed any requirements to upload assessment evidence and the timing for doing so at that planning meeting. So to upload the evidence when required, you simply go to Assessment Progress on the main menu and go to Manage, which will then display the Manage Element menu. Using the assessment information drop-down, you can browse for the file, you can name it appropriately. It will default to the name of the file, but if you need to overwrite that, you can, and you simply select Upload. And the evidence will then be there for us to review as part of your EPA evidence submission. If I could get the next slide, please. So stage 7 is the important bit, the main event itself, the actual EPA event. And if I could get next slide, please. There are generally 3 main types of EPA events. An online knowledge test, typically in the form of MCQ or short answer questions. And these continue to be accessed through Evolve, our online testing platform. And as I mentioned, booked in the usual way on Walled Garden. And face-to-face events, these might be skills observations or on-site skills assessments of one form or another. For these, EPA Pro will tell you when and where this event will take place. And the third category are interviews, discussions, or presentations, which are generally carried out virtually using GoToMeeting. Next slide, please. we've created this really useful supplementary checklist to ensure that your apprentices have everything they need on the day of their EPA, no matter how it's being delivered. So you'll find this in the resources section under checklists, and it's a really good reference just to make sure you're good to go and you've got everything you need for the day, and it's got some useful troubleshooting hints and tips on it as well. So I would thoroughly recommend taking a look at that. Next slide, please. So stage 8, again, the exciting part, following on from a good EPA experience, we know that you and your apprentices will be really keen to hear your results as soon as possible. So if we could get the next slide, please. Thank you. In EPA Pro, we make the results available for individual components as soon as they have been internally quality assured by ourselves. So as soon as that result's ready to go, you will get that result. The only caveat there is perhaps where there's a sort of integrated assessment approach, and we need to wait for one component to happen to feed into the next. So we might hold results back in those sorts of situations. But anywhere where we can get a result to you, we will get the result straight to you. If the event's taken place but you haven't actually received the result yet, that result will show as pending until we complete that activity. So once results are available, you'll be able to access an online statement of achievement. So you'll be able to do that for each individual component and also for an overall listing certificate at the end of the process. So they can be printed off, they can be downloaded or emailed straight away. And then once we've got all your results and your overall grade, we will apply to the ESFA for the certificate on your behalf. An ESFA will issue the full apprenticeship certificate. If I could get the next slide, please. So alongside those statement of achievement certificates, we will also issue a digital credential. You might have heard of them referred to as digital badges. So these are a great way to share your skills and for your apprentices to showcase themselves through social media, and we're going to see a lot more of them appearing on social media, which is really lovely, or as an integral part of an online CV. Anyone who clicks on that credential will be able to see the skills criteria that that apprentice earned as part of their apprenticeship. So they're a really great way to make their skills more visible and share them more widely. We have put a guide together to help you on what to do when you receive a digital credential. And again, that's also in the EPA Pro platform as well. And there's some more information on our website about digital credentials more widely. If I could get the next slide, please. So we've now gone through the 8 stages. I just want to talk now about how you can get some sort of support as you progress through the 8 stages. Next slide, please. So this slide just touches on some of the SLAs that we as City and Guilds will commit to, just to help you understand how long different elements of the process will take. So these are general kind of working day SLAs. Some of them can't be set in stone because things like when you want your preferred planning meeting and when you want your assessment events to happen are very much dictated by you. So we can't put hard and fast SLAs around them. So some of these are sort of rules that we're working towards. So to talk you through it, so if we go from gateway submission, so once you submit gateway, we aim to review your evidence within 3 working days and either accept or reject. And again, we'll be very clear with a reason if we do need to reject them. Once you've been successful at gateway, it takes us around 5 working days. Typically, it happens a lot faster to match you with an independent endpoint assessor, and they'll aim to schedule your planning meeting within the next 2 working days. The goal for our EPAs, if you haven't given us a date, is to try and schedule them within the next 10 days, but obviously you will hopefully have given us some dates and we'll be picking one of those dates. Within 3 days of that planning meeting, your IEP will have finished that assessment plan. Again, typically some of them may create them in the actual meeting itself, and that will trigger all the invitations to the events. It's our goal to move from planning meeting to the events having taken place within 3 to 4 weeks. But again, it depends on when you've asked for those events to take place. So it's hard to make that a fixed rule. After each EPA event, you can expect to receive your results within 7 working days, again, unless it's a sort of integrated assessment where we've got to hold results back until we've completed another component. But as and when we can share results, we do that within 7 working days. And then once we've got all the results, it takes us another 7 working days for us to issue the final overall certification. And at that point, we'll apply to ESFA for your certificate. And within 5 days, we'll also issue a digital credential. So that just talks you through a rough timeline of what will happen and when. If we could get the next slide, please. Okay, at each and every stage of your journey in EPA Pro, you should have complete visibility of where your apprentices are and also where your cohorts of apprentices are. So as a reminder, you can log in at any time and have a look at your apprentices assessment plan and progress towards the EPA. Your apprentices can see that view as well. If I could get the next slide, please. If we move to reporting, most of the elements in EPA Pro that you can see can be reported upon. So if you go to the reporting area on the main menu, you can access a dashboard which has got some of the more common views and graphs that you might want to use. Any of these graphs can be exported. These are the pictures or data if you want to slot them into any management reports. And if we move on to the next slide, I can also show you that there's an extensive suite of reports that you can access at any time. So you can access them on an ad hoc basis or when you need to for a particular report. You can also use the report scheduling tool to send any reports anywhere you need to, with exactly the frequency you need to, and it will go straight to that inbox. You can even choose one of the reports and go, well, I don't need that column, I'll take those out, and you can save that as a bespoke report that you can equally then go on to schedule and send out. So this reporting suite is getting added to all of the time. So if there's something that we're not currently able to report on that you'd like to see, if you just let us know, we can look into that for you. Next slide, please. So I'll actually just come back to questions and answers in a minute. If we could just move on to the next slide and the next one, please. Thank you. So this is just talks about support and feedback, really. So customer feedback is something that we absolutely love at City and Guilds, and we've wanted to make it as simple as we can for you to submit feedback to us. So we've added a simple widget on our EPA service delivery page. So tell us if we're getting something wrong, tell us if there's something you'd like, tell us if something could be made easier for you. We do really want to know. In terms of support, you can contact us through Centre Support on the email address shown above, by telephone, press option 5 for anything EPA Pro related, or you can web chat with us as well. Okay, so I think now hopefully Rebecca's been answering any questions as they've arisen in the chat, but I don't know if we've got any remaining questions, Rebecca.
Thank you, Lana. We haven't actually had any questions come through.
Okay.
So you've delivered it so well that all your other questions have been answered.
Okay.
So there hasn't been anything come through on any of the chats that I've been monitoring so far. But yeah, please feel free if anyone has any questions, any areas that they'd like us to confirm or relook at. Myself and Lorna are more than happy to support. I'm around all day. So if you do have wider questions following this event, I'm more than happy to support at any time.
Absolutely, yeah. Do reach out to us through any of the conference facilities and we can get back to you with answers to those questions. And as I mentioned before, if you're a current customer and you've got feedback, please do use that feedback link. It's always nice to hear from you. So if there are no further questions, I think we'll wrap it up, and thank you for joining us today. Do remember to step by our Expo booth, have a demo of any of the resources you've seen today or any of the smart screen resources we've got, and we look forward to making your EPA Pro journey a success with City and Guilds. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.